Immediately after the pseudo-elections, the Kremlin began to develop a new mobilization plan. At the board meeting of the Russian Minister of Defense, Sergei Shoigu said that 2 combined armies and 34 nations would be formed in Russia by the end of the year. This means that about 200,000 Russian citizens will fall under a new wave of mobilization.
Reserve soldiers can be forcibly conscripted into the troops. Conscripts can be forced into contract, and Russians who are in the reserves can also be mobilized. Several military registration and enlistment offices and government agencies in Moscow confirmed to Verstka that they are preparing reservations for mobilization, and sources in the Ministry of Defense spoke about preparations for gathering, as a result of which at least some of the reservists could be mobilized or forced to sign a contract and be sent to fight in Ukraine. From a publication of the Verstka Telegram channel.
At the same time, according to British intelligence, even if the authorities managed to recruit the required number of people, new units of the Russian army may face a number of problems.
However, given Russia's limited training, widespread use of legacy equipment, and infrastructure issues, it is likely these units will suffer similar resourcing problems. From a message by the UK Ministry of Defense on social network X.
They talked about a possible new mobilization on the eve of the spring conscription, which starts in Russia on April the 1st, even before the illegitimate presidential elections.
Without a new wave of forced mobilization, the Kremlin will not be able to recruit any significant number of military personnel necessary to continue the aggression for some offensive actions. Its plans require this mobilization to start after all. Of course, there is a flow of contract soldiers, but it is not enough.
Meanwhile, in Moscow, they began sending out summons papers en masse through the Mos.ru portal. The authorities claim that mobilization via the internet is still in test mode.
Don't worry about fines for failing to comply with the summons. Firstly, we proceed from the fact that it is impossible to be held accountable for failure to appear on the electronic agenda due to the lack of bylaws to regulate them, as well as military registration and a register of summons. Secondly, military registration and enlistment officers have not yet learned how to properly hold people accountable, which means the fine can be easily appealed. Thirdly, for failure to comply with the summons to clarify data, they cannot initiate a criminal case for draft evasion. From a publication by the Conscious Objectors Movement Telegram channel.
The exact purpose of creating new formations of the Russian army is not announced, but it is likely that the Kremlin may be preparing offensive actions in the Zaporizhia and Kharkiv direction.
Next on the plan is Kharkiv, with the preservation of the city, and this is only possible if it is surrounded. 300 southern snouts are missing, therefore everything is ready for mobilization 2.0. He added that nobody wants to turn Kharkiv into a second Mariupol. On the contrary, there is an idea to make it a showcase of the fact that Russians know how to fight in a civilized manner. Source in the internal political bloc of the Putin administration in an interview with the Verstka publication.
Sources knew that the pace of recruitment has slowed significantly. For comparison, at the beginning of 2023, contracts were concluded with 5,000 people a day. Now it's 20-30 people. Therefore, experts predict that the spring conscription will be disastrous and more severe in all regions, even in Moscow. Reported by Diana Kolesnik, Yulia Granovska, UATV News.